Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. My name is Noor Ajra Balkis binti Muhammad Aminuddin. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of introduction about absolute monarchy. An absolute monarchy is a form of government that was popular during medieval Europe and up until the end of the 18th century. It involved society being ruled over by an all-powerful king or queen. The monarch had complete control over all aspects of the society, including political power, economics, and all forms of authority. The monarch was able to maintain absolute control over the society with the addition of feudalism, which involved people being placed into different estates of power, such as clergy, nobility, and peasants. Louis XIV, who ruled France as a monarch from 1661 until 1715, was expressing his absolute control over the society at the time by stating that he ruled all over the aspects of the country and therefore was the highest and most powerful authority of the state. Absolute monarchies often contain two key features, which is hereditary rules and divine right of kings. Hereditary rules meant that the monarch received their position due to their birth and as one in a long family line of monarchs. As well, medieval European absolute monarchs included the practice of divine right of kings, meaning that the monarch derived his or her power from God. This furthered the power of a monarch because it ensured that the king or queen did not get their power from the people. Therefore, the people had no control or say over the monarch's rule. The Enlightenment and its ideals of liberty greatly impact the ability of absolute monarchs to continue to rule as they had. Influential Enlightenment thinkers questioned the traditional authority and right to rule of monarchs and began a wave of change across much of the Western world, including the birth of capitalism and democracy. Today, very few nations continue to exist with an absolute monarchy, but a few examples remain, which is Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Brunei. The divine right of kings served as the primary justification for absolute monarchies for much of history. This concept implies the monarch enjoys power by divine right and nobody had the right or authority to limit their power. Divine right meant the monarch enjoyed the inspiration of God and served as God's representative. This justification was common in many European countries throughout history and served to underpin the powers of an absolute monarch. Under this theory, the monarch was only accountable to God, preventing the populace from having any right to dispute the monarch's decisions of levels of power. Under this theory, the monarch was only accountable to God, preventing the populace from having any right to dispute the monarch's decisions or levels of power. In some countries, centralizing power in a single person provided the best solution to internal problems. For example, Henry of Navarre centralized power and control in France when he became king. When he took the throne, the country had suffered significant upheaval and conflict from religious wars and disputes between the different classes. While he did not achieve absolute monarchy, he did set the stage for subsequent monarchs to continue centralizing power to deal with the internal problems of the country. While an absolute monarch theoretically enjoyed complete power and control, in reality, many absolute monarchs shared power or were significantly influenced by other interests. The church served as a major influence in many monarchies, and the clergy could wield significant power over monarchs due to their influence with the citizens. In some countries, the nobility also affected the decisions and actions of absolute monarchs. Even in cases where a monarch held absolute power, the nobility surrounding him or her could generate enough opposition to reduce a monarch's actual power. Throughout history, numerous examples of absolute monarchy exist. Some were considered successful and brought peace and prosperity to the country, and others were not. The monarch abused their power and made life more difficult for their subjects. While most countries moved away from this method of government and towards representative models, absolute monarchy served as a stabilizing factor in the development of many nations.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Asha binti Uthman. I'm from class 3G. So today I'm going to talk about characteristics of absolute monarchy. Absolute monarchy, or known as absolutism, as doctrine, is a form of monarchy in which the monarch holds supreme authority, principally not being restricted by written law, legislature, or custom. The first characteristic of absolute monarchy is absolute monarchy is a form of monarchy where the ruler rules a state and its citizen without any legal or political interference. The ruler holds unlimited power, which individuals are subjects owing loyalty and obedience. Next, absolute monarchy is different from limited monarchy, as it is neither legally bound nor restricted by laws or constitution. And lastly, in some absolute monarchies, only those individuals who are allowed to participate in the functioning of the government.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Sharifah Novara binti Syed Mustaza from AM1103G. Nowadays, there are some countries that are still using absolute monarchy system. The question is, what are the advantages if a person have unlimited political power? Seems like the rule of absolute monarchy. Firstly, the advantages of the absolute monarchy is enabling decision on the administration and welfare of the country to be made immediately. This is because the king has power over the country and the people have to follow his order, despite having an advisor who will help in the administration as well as make decision. Through this government, a decision is made in a short period of time because it can avoid quarrel due to disagreement in decision making. With a government that only the king rules and make decision, every problem in the country can be overcome with faster without taking too long. Next, the advantages of the absolute monarchy is policy that can be implemented in the long period. The king can achieve the policy and goal plan for as long as his government or for life. The policy or goal implemented will remain for a long time. There is no possibility that this policy or goal will be changed or cancelled by anyone who holds office and does not want to continue the policy, because this is the advantage of the country of absolute monarchy. If, however, there is a problem that arises during the reign, the king has changed to overcome the problem. Lastly, the advantages of absolute monarchy is that the ruler has a lot of power and a stable position. The ruler of the country that practices the absolute monarchy, the king has a lot of power and a stable position because there will be no power struggle or the throne. This will stabilize the position of the king without any competition. Only one king has absolute power in the country. At the same time, it can maintain the stability of the country from external problem. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Siti Munirah Muhammad Sattar from AM103G. I'm the one of members of Group 4 and I'm here to explain the system monarchy at Brunei. Brunei is one of the only two absolute monarchy left in Asia. The other is found in Bhutan. The Sultan is descended from a centuries-old royal line preserved between cousins by intermarriage. No political resistance and almost no political activism is tolerated. Bruneians are proud to have the longest ruling dynasty in the world and the only and the only remaining Islamic Melayu monarchy. Brunei has followed the national ideology of the Malay Islamic monarchy, which is known Melayu Islam Beraja, since they are gaining independence from the British in 1984. A structure that incorporates strong Malay culture's influences, emphasizing the importance of Islam in everyday life and governance and reverence for the monarchy as embodied by His Majesty the Sultan. It is tolerance ideology which encourages all cultures to adopt individual tradition and observe others' religions. The monarchy is regarded by people in Brunei with deep respect. People are very vigilant about not offending the Sultan. Brunei has their rules and they have been used to prosecute insult against members of the royal family. Disclosing details regarding the riches of the royal family is an offense. Bruneians celebrate the Sultan with festival and parades on his birthday on July 53rd. On that day, the Sultan released jail inmates, succession rules, male primogeniture among the Sultan's legitimate heirs and successors. The royal wife's sons take precedence over the commoner's sons, according to native royalty, subject to the Constitution and the Proclamation of Succession and Regency 1959. The Council of Succession determines the succession of the throne in the event of that need arising. The order of succession is defined by the Constitution and arrangements. The arrangements are similarly laid down for a regency. A member of the Council of Succession is appointed by the Sultan. The inherent succession is restricted to Sultan Hashim Jalalul legitimate alam descendants. The succession runs through male primogeniture. The sons of royal wives take precedence over the sons of wives of commoners. Faith must be professed by the wife of a sultan. In the Gazette, the sultan has to proclaim her as his consort. The head of administration, supreme executive authority, and absolute ruler of Brunei is the Sultan of Brunei. As prime minister, he is the head of the government. Just one sultan has ruled since independence from the British in 1984, while the royal institution dates back to the 4th century. In 1991, something called the Malay Muslim monarchy was introduced by the sultan, which made the monarchy the guardian of the Muslim faith in Brunei. His Majesty the Sultan and Yang di-Pertuan. The full title of the Sultan is Majesty the Sultan and Yang di-Pertuan of Brunei Darussalam. Brunei monarchy has the distinction of being the oldest unbroken reigning dynasty in the world. The Sultanate of Brunei and its Malay Sultan have been around for around 700 years. It was established, it is said, the 33rd country when a prince from the Borneo became a sultan. According to the national epic poem, the origins of the present sultanate start when Dewa Emas Kayangan came down from heaven in egg. One of his children converted to the Islam and became the first sultan. Not much is known about the first sultans. Under the reign of the 5th Sultan Bolkiah, the influence of the sultanate was extended. This purported era continued until the end of the reign of the 90th Sultan Hassan. After his death, the country entered a period of decline.
Hey, Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Syafiq bin Shahrudin and my metric number is 2019-207-998. At my part, I would like to present about example of countries that practice absolute monarchy system. It is a Saudi Arabic country. The polity of Saudi Arabia takes place in the content of a totalitarian absolute monarchy with Islamic line, where the king is both the head of state and government. Education are to a large extent made based on consultation among the senior prince of the royal family and the religious establishment. The Quran is declared to be the constitution of the country, which is a government based on Islamic law. Yeah? The Elegance Council is responsible to determine the new king and the new crown prince. The government is dominated by the vast royal family. The Al Saud, which is has often been divided by external disputes and faction. The member of the family are the principal political actor allowed by the government. Political participation outside the royal family is limited. Saudi Arabia is one of the only two countries, which is the other being Vatican City, does not have a separate legislative body. Saudi Arabia itself uses the absolute monarchy political system, while the system of government used by the Arab state is the same as other Islamic countries, which is used the Quran and the Sharia, which the basics of the way government. The system of government of Saudi Arabia is a presidential of the king. Alright. In this system, there is no general election, although there is only for the election of the leaders of legislative and judicial institution. The executive body is also referred to as the Council of Ministers of the Government of Saudi Arabia, which consists of kings, ministers, and advisors to the king. While the constitution of Saudi Arabia is the Quran and Sunnah, the basic law of the country is Islamic Sharia. According to the basic law of Saudi Arabia in 1992, there are authorities in the country, namely the Council of Ministers, the Consultative Council, and the court and the scholars. Alright. In this system, there is no general election, although there is only for the election of the leaders of legislative and judicial institution. The executive body is also referred to as the Council of Ministers of the Government of Saudi Arabia, which consists of kings, ministers, and advisors to the king. While the constitution of Saudi Arabia is the Quran and Sunnah, the basic law of the country is Islamic Sharia. According to the basic law of Saudi Arabia in 1992, there are authorities in the country, namely the Council of Ministers, the Consultative Council, and the court and the scholars. As for the form of the state of Saudi Arabia is the union. This government was divided into 30 Midikah provinces ruled directly by the king, and namely Al-Bahar, Al-Hudud, Shamaliyah, Al-Jaf, and more. Government official and court are entirely under the authority of the king. The judiciary has a general court and a special court. According to the basic law of Saudi Arabia, in the judiciary must be independent. Each judge was appointed ordering by the king. In authority, there are scholars are institutions in the basic law of Saudi Arabia whose function is to be a method of interpretation of Islamic law, namely ijma and shura. Although the law of Saudi Arabia are Islamic law, but the ideology of their country is Wahhabi. Wahhabi ideology is an understanding of Islamic law based on the practice of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and his companions. Wahhabi ideology is also known as Salafish ideology. Constitution of Saudi Arabia, Islam as the basic of the state of Saudi Arabia. The Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet is the constitution of the state, why the Sharia as the basic law implemented by the court of the Sharia. The law of Saudi Arabia is based on the pure theory enhanced lesson. Then the highest law in the Quran and Sunnah of the Prophet. While the basic law and the king second and third ranks. The decree of the king is in the fourth remainder. These three type of legislation must be in accordance with the principle of law contained in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet. So Saudi Arabia puts the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ahead. So, judicial system, Saudi Arabia uses two legal institutions in resolving legal issues, namely the Sharia court and the Fatwa institution. Each of these institutions has different authorities. The Sharia court has absolute authority and relative authority. Court has absolute authority and relative authority. It can examine criminal matter, civil matter, and jurisdiction. While the institution of the Mufti of Fatwa serves to provide legal education on the matter that concerns public issue, both domestic and foreign political issues. So the Saudi Arabia use a system of presidential government and use an absolute monarchical political system. Right. So that's from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Farhana binti Muhammad Saufi from AM110 Group 3G. That brings us to the end of the presentation. I would like to summarize by saying the leaders in absolute monarchy and democracy must be clever and wise leaders if they are to maintain their position. In democracy, however, if the leader is bad and effective, the people can change their leader. But in an absolute monarchy, the people must put up with a bad leader until he dies. Alright, for example, is Saudi Arabia. Although the government follows Saudi Arabia basic law, it does not have constitution. The government executive power are hereditary, and by lawyer decree, the judicial and legislative branches are appointed. Only the monarchy can dismiss anyone appointed by the monarch. In fact, the monarchy may be the head of state, head of government, or both. As the leader is known, the head of state particularly is diplomatic affair, is the representative of the country and its people. By contrast, the head of government is the individual who actually leads the government in the creation and enforcement of policy. Typically, monarchy is called a kingdom. Other terms may include the Grand Duchy, as in the case of Luxembourg, the Principality, as in Monaco, or the state of the city, as in the case of Vatican. Absolute monarchy are one in which, as the head of state and head of government, the monarchy exercise total power. They is held by the king. Saudi Arabia, where the ruling house of Saud retains enormous authority and power, is the most prominent example of an absolute monarchy for today. Okay, in other words, absolute monarchy was the principle that the supreme authority to run state affairs rests in the hands of monarchy, who rule by divine right. The reality of this type of government was that the king was still influenced by various political and religious groups, so that the power of monarchy, king or queen, are absolute. However, most monarchy came to exist with the growth of parliamentary authority during the 19th century and the rise of communism or after the First World War. Even where monarchy exists, there are only criminal head of state in the most cases, while elected legislature have authority to rule, therefore make a law. So, lastly, there are 43 or 44 countries that, depending on whether or not the Vatican is counted among them, have democracy, have monarchy as the criminal or the true head of state. Of these, 7 are absolute monarchy, including the Vatican. In 16, the realms of the Commonwealth, and the remaining 21 are constitutional monarchy. That's all from us. Thank you.